Hello YouTube, welcome back to Kind Heart Homestead. My name is Ben, and I'm here on our off-grid property in the mountains of Virginia. Behind me is the downspout configuration that I built custom out of thin wall PVC pipe. That's a smaller, much lighter weight, much cheaper variety of PVC pipe that's used almost exclusively for exterior drainage projects. So this downspout coming down from the T-fitting here is temporary. So let me go ahead and pull that out. So from there, I'm going to put a first flush diverter, and that essentially gets all of the pollen and bird poop off the roof and rejects it. It's up to me how big that diversion is, how many gallons gets diverted. Basically, the way the system works is that a ball will float up to the top of the diversion chamber. And once it gets up to the T-fitting, then it gets diverted to here. And I'll have to custom drill a hole in there so I can fit these pipe fittings and pipe, whatever I have, to go in there. So from the first flush, I'll have a pipe going down here. Another project I have to do while I'm up here this trip is finish up all these plumbing fittings so I can actually run the water. Right now I have a lot of fittings connected, but ultimately it's a disconnected system. I don't have it plugged and terminated in a way to keep this room dry. So I need to finish that up today, hopefully, so I can finally take a shower in the camper. We'll see how that goes. So stick around and I'll be right back. After years of research and months of trying to decide how to source a rain barrel locally, at least at the capacity that we wanted, we finally have access to our very own rain barrel. We ended up ordering this from Home Depot because any company that I found online, including some of the local companies, were going to charge me $600 for freight shipping, and I seriously couldn't justify that. Home Depot only charges $50 for delivery. I didn't realize it was going to be freight. They never told me. But now that we have access to it, I don't need to worry about that anymore. Let me know down in the comments how you were able to source your large-scale rain collection tote. Some people online have recommended connecting several IBC totes together to equal the capacity overall that I'm looking for. That does require a lot more effort, however, because you need to block out all of the sunlight to prevent algae and other growth from accumulating inside the totes. You also have to worry about the plumbing that connects all of them together. Up on the mountain here, we have to worry about freezing conditions, and the small diameter of the pipes that you would use to connect IBC totes together would be subject to freezing conditions. I would say any pipes outside would be subject to freezing conditions, but the smaller the container, the quicker the freeze. And with this, we're going to have large 4-inch pipes filling it. Those are not going to freeze, and there's not going to be any standing water in them. And we'll have a 2-inch ball valve as an outlet. That ball valve should be so large that as long as we disconnect the hose from it, I'm hoping that the valve itself will not explode in the freeze and let all the water out. The thermal mass of this 1,200 gallon tank hopefully will not freeze very easily. You can see what I'm doing now. I'm using my largest level to do some basic screeding on the ground. I did a rough grading with a piece of heavy equipment that I rented recently, but just to finalize this, make sure there's no rocks that can penetrate the bottom of the tote, I am just doing a quick grading and then I'm moving our plastic rain barrel into position. Before we start hooking anything up, however, I do want to vacuum out some of the plastic burrs that were left in there from the manufacturing process. The big delivery truck that brought this rain barrel didn't actually have a lift gate, even though I was told it would have one. So I backed the truck up, and it was about the same height as the box of that truck. So we just kind of rolled this in there. The driver helped me do that. So that area is roughly graded, and that's roughly in the position that it's going to be in. Got a 2-inch ball valve hooked up. I originally wanted 2,000 gallons, but this was about $1 a gallon from Home Depot, and of all of the larger capacity ones, that one was the best deal, the best dollar per gallon. So I don't have any of this connected to that yet, but I'll take that downspout off, replace it with a first flush. It's a type of diverter that allows all the bird poop and stuff to get diverted from this barrel. I finally got a hold of these 4-inch pipe saddles that I'm using for my permanent standoffs to keep this downspout assembly at a controlled distance. That way it can clear the door and it's also not going to sag or blow in the wind. This is all important because I need this entire assembly to be rigid so I can attach the first flush diversion system and get it all connected to the actual rain barrel. I'll put a product link down in the description if you'd like to see what kind of mechanism I purchased. They sell it in a 3-inch pipe or a 4-inch pipe, and it comes with this T-fitting with the little adapters that you would use if you were going to use thin wall PVC instead of the standard Schedule 40. Like I said, this is a lot lighter weight than Schedule 40, and that's why I chose this. It's also cheaper. So this proprietary T-fitting has a little chamber in the bottom that prevents the ball from floating out and down your pipe. Basically, the ball comes up and stops once the diversion chamber is full. Here's a close-up of the finished product. All I have to do is add a small hose to the bottom of the drip outlet. That way, the diverted water has somewhere to drain to between storms. Behind me is my Schneider inverter and charge controller, along with my new EG4 batteries. So far, I've just been kind of unsafely hooking things up temporarily just to test if there's AC voltage coming out and things like that. But now I have the actual 60 amp split phase breaker that receives the 2 hots from the inverter, as well as a split phase 20 amp breaker. And this goes down through the trench and out to the well. And that's my Grundfos submersible well pump. So what I need to do right now is flip on the batteries breaker, the AC output breaker, and the DC breaker, and then both of these breakers, so that's at least 5 breakers, to see if the well does in fact turn on. Because I need to run all the chlorine out of it before I can get my stuff hooked up. And also, I guess more importantly, is the state needs to see a negative test for coliform. And they say to take the water sample from the closest source to the well, which in my case is the wellhead itself. So before I plumb that up to the poly line that goes underground, I'm going to get all the chlorine out. I just flipped up our temporary rain barrel and put it over the well system because that is now hooked up. I took the sample off camera. Now for the big reveal. I guess I shouldn't hype it up that much. This room is so crammed, but as you can see, I've been working on the plumbing down there. The pressure tank's roughly in the spot that it's going to be in. Got the pressure gauge. I have a ball valve here so I can turn off all of the output. And then 3/4 inch PEX goes up to a filter. And then from there, it's going to tee off to all these other pipes. They're each going to have their own ball valve. Each zone, I'm calling them, like from irrigation terms. I have one zone that goes to the garden, one that goes to the camper, and then this shed itself with its water lines for the toilet, the shower, the sink, and the laundry hookup. Each of those will have a dedicated shutoff. That way, if there's any problems I need to diagnose, I can turn each of those zones off individually without having to shut down the entire system. And that's going to be important for the garden and the camper because those are on the other side, and those lines could potentially freeze for the winter. So we might want to just turn those off from here and not worry about the issues that could arise from freezing pipes. I could just leave those taps open to allow a bit of a release for any pressure that's building up in those lines. No drywall this trip. I'm experimenting with the camper having its own series. We also have our first raised bed completed, and Angie was happy to get some seeds started. It's going to probably be a couple weeks before I can spend more time up here, but it's coming pretty soon. So if you want to see the kind of stuff that I do when I'm actually able to spend more time up here, please go ahead and subscribe. And I'll see you next time here on Kind Heart Homestead. Bye.